My sister excluded me from her wedding for refusing my lake house. But when she found out, my parents lied to her for 4 years, making her believe I lived there for free. The truth left them speechless. I'm 32 years old. I work from home as a graphic designer, and what happened with my family a few years ago basically destroyed the relationship I had with my parents and my sister. The thing is, I bought our lake house in 2017. Like, I bought it. With my money. It's legally mine. But my family acted for years like it was still everyone's, and when I finally set boundaries, everything went to shit. I guess I should start from the beginning so you can really understand how we got to this mess. The lake house belonged to my grandparents, my mom's parents, and when they died, they left it to my parents, Frank and Elizabeth. It was like the family gathering place, you know? Every summer we went there, Christmas, Thanksgiving, any long weekend, and I have the best memories of my childhood in that house. Brittany, my younger sister, is like 4 years younger than me, and she also grew up going there all the time. It was our special place, let's say, where the whole family got together and had a good time. But in 2017, things changed completely when my parents offered to sell it to me, and that's where this whole story that still has me frustrated to this day begins. Brittany was finishing her last year of high school at that point, and turns out she didn't get the full scholarship she was expecting for her dream university. My parents always spoiled her a lot, like she was clearly the favorite, and they had promised to pay for whatever college she wanted. When the scholarship didn't come through, suddenly they needed like $200,000 for her 4 years of college, and they didn't have it. I had already been working for like 3 years. I lived in a small apartment in the city, and I had saved up quite a bit because, honestly, I was always careful with money. One day my dad called me and said, "Patrick, we need to talk about something important. Can you come to dinner this weekend?" And I obviously said yes, with no idea what was coming. When I got to my parents' the house that Saturday, you could tell they had been talking to each other for a long time before I arrived. My mom was nervous. My dad had that serious face he makes when he's going to say something he doesn't like, and Brittany wasn't even there. I think they sent her to a friend's house or something. I sat down in the living room and my dad basically dropped everything on me at once. He told me they needed money for Brittany's college, that the lake house was worth like $180,000 according to an appraiser they had consulted, and that if I wanted to buy it, they would sell it to me for $150,000 as a family price. Honestly, I froze because I wasn't expecting any of that, and my first thought was like, are they seriously selling Grandma and Grandpa's house? But then I started processing it and realized it was an incredible opportunity for me, you know? I had exactly $160,000 saved at that moment. I had been saving money to eventually buy something, and the lake house was beautiful, in a gorgeous area, and if I fixed it up well, I could even live there and work remotely. I told them yes, almost immediately. Although part of me felt guilty about Brittany, because basically I was buying her education. But at the same time I thought, well, it's a fair transaction. They need the money, and I get an incredible property. We signed all the papers in March 2017. I transferred them the $150,000. I was left with like $10,000 in the bank, and the house became 100% in my name, legally mine, deeds, and everything. My parents were super clear at that moment. They told me, "Now it's yours, Patrick. Do whatever you want with it." And I thanked them a lot because honestly it was a pretty good deal for me. Brittany sent me a message that day saying thank you for helping her go to her dream college, and I responded that it was no problem, that I was glad I could help, and everything seemed fine at that moment. What nobody knew was that the house needed a lot of work to be livable year-round. My grandparents only used it in summer, so it didn't have decent heating. The insulation was terrible, the plumbing was old, the roof had leaks, and basically it was a summer house, not a house to live in permanently. I spent all of 2017 going on weekends to work on the house. I hired some guys for the big things, like the roof and heating, but I did a ton myself because I didn't have much money left after the purchase. I painted all the walls, fixed the floors, changed the windows, updated the bathrooms, put in high-speed internet because I needed to work from there, and basically converted that house into my house. You know what I mean? It wasn't a weekend project. It was my entire life for months, spending my last savings and all my free time making that house work for me. In January 2018, I finally moved full-time to the lake house. I told my boss I would work remotely from there. I sold most of my furniture from the apartment because I didn't need it. And I settled in. And honestly, it was incredible. Like, waking up every day with a view of the lake, working from my office with the windows open, it was literally my dream come true. But from the first month, the problems with my family started. Although at first they were small and I didn't pay much attention to them. My mom would call me like, "Patrick, your dad and I want to go spend the 4th of July weekend there. It's okay if we go, right?" And at first I would say yes because, well, they're my parents. I wasn't going to make it difficult. But then it became more frequent. Brittany wanted to go with her college friends, my parents wanted to bring their friends, my aunt wanted to have a family reunion there, and I started to feel like everyone still saw the house as family property when legally it was mine. In 2019, Chandler, my partner at the time, moved in with me at the lake house. We had been together for like 2 years and everything was going super well, so it made sense for us to live together. And Chandler loved the house as much as I did. We put our furniture together, decorated everything, made more improvements, and basically built our life there. But my family still didn't understand that it wasn't a hotel available to them whenever they wanted, and the requests didn't stop. The one who insisted the most was Brittany, who was now in her 2nd year of college and acted as if I owed her something because my parents had sold the house to pay for her studies. I remember perfectly one time she called me and said, "Patrick, my friends and I want to go celebrate the end of semester there. Obviously they can stay, right?" And I told her, "Brittany, Chandler and I live there. It's not a vacation home." And she got mad at me and told me I was selfish and that the house had always been the family's. That's where I should have set firmer boundaries. Looking back, but honestly, it's hard to say no to your family when your whole life they've taught you that family is a most important thing and that you have to help whenever you can. So I kept saying yes to some things, no to others, trying to find a balance, but it was never enough for them. My parents started telling me things like, "Well, Patrick, we sold you the house at a good price. The least you can do is let us use it from time to time." And I felt guilty, but at the same time I thought, I bought this house. I spent all my money on it. I live here. Why do I have to be justifying that I want privacy in my own house? Things reached the breaking point in 2020 when Brittany announced her engagement to Eric, her college boyfriend. They planned the wedding for June 2020, but obviously had to postpone it because of the pandemic, and finally scheduled it for December 2021. During all that time, like a year and a half, Brittany was super into the wedding plans, like it was the only thing she talked about, and I was happy for her. Although honestly, our relationship was already pretty tense because of the whole house thing. She asked me to be part of the wedding party, like to be one of the groomsmen or whatever you call it, and I accepted because, well, she's my sister. And despite everything, I love her. But in October 2021, like 2 months before the wedding, Brittany called me, and that's when everything exploded in the most dramatic way possible. I remember that call perfectly because I was working in my office when I saw it was her. I answered like, "Hi, Brittany, what's up?" And she immediately went into demanding mode. She told me, "Patrick, Eric, and I decided that for our honeymoon, we're going to stay at the lake house for 2 weeks, from December 18th to January 2nd. Mom and Dad said it was fine, so I'm just letting you know." And I literally stood there with my mouth open because, seriously? Was she telling me she was going to occupy my house for 2 weeks instead of asking me? I said, "Brittany, wait, are you asking me or are you telling me?" And she sounded confused and said, "I'm letting you know Mom and Dad said there's no problem." That's when I realized that my parents had been telling Brittany for years that I basically lived there for free or something because she honestly seemed not to understand that the house was mine. I explained as calmly as I could, "Look, Brittany, I bought that house. It's legally mine. Chandler and I live there full time. It's not a vacation home available for the family. I can't give you the house for 2 weeks because it's my home. Do you understand?" And she got super angry, started yelling on the phone saying I was selfish, that I had always been like that how was I going to ruin her honeymoon, that it was her special moment, and that I was being horrible to her. I told her I could help them find another place, that there were beautiful rentals in the area, that I could even give them money to help pay for it, but that I wasn't going to leave my own house for 2 weeks. Brittany hung up on me, and literally 5 minutes later, the calls from my parents started. My mom called first, crying, asking me why I was being so cruel to Brittany, that it was her honeymoon, that it was only for 2 weeks, that Chandler and I could stay somewhere else for that time. I explained exactly the same thing I had told Brittany, that it was my house, that I had spent all my money buying it and fixing it up, that I lived there, that it wasn't reasonable to ask me to leave my home for 2 weeks. My mom told me I was selfish, that family should be more important to me, that she was disappointed in me. Then my dad called, with basically the same speech, but he was angrier than sad. He told me that he and my mom had given me a preferential price on the house, specifically because it was still family property, and that I was breaking that implicit agreement by denying Brittany the house. And that's where I lost my patience. Because that implicit agreement was a lie, you know? When they sold me the house, they clearly told me it was mine. They never said anything about it still being the family's or that it had to be available for them. I told my dad exactly that. I said, "Dad, you told me it was my house. We signed legal papers. This is a transaction that already happened 4 years ago. You can't change the terms now because it's convenient for you." My dad told me I was being ridiculous, that obviously they expected the family to be able to keep using the house, and that if I was going to be that stingy, maybe they should have sold it to someone else. I told him maybe they should have, and I hung up on him. The next few days were absolute hell of messages and calls. Brittany sent me like 50 messages telling me everything, that I had ruined her wedding, that she had paid with her education for me to have that house, which made no sense because my parents chose to sell the house to pay for her college. I didn't decide that I was the worst brother in the world, that she would never forgive me. My parents kept calling. My aunts and uncles started getting involved. Everyone had an opinion about how I was being terrible to my sister on her special moment. The only person who supported me was my Aunt Ruth, my mom's sister, who called me and said, "Patrick, don't let them manipulate you. That house is yours and you have every right to set boundaries. What they're doing to you isn't right." A week after that first call, Brittany sent me a formal message uninviting me from the wedding. She told me she didn't want me there, that I clearly didn't care about her or her happiness, and that I was out of the wedding party and off the guest list. It hurt a lot. I'm not going to lie, because despite everything, she's my sister and I wanted to be there on her important day. But I also felt like a strange relief, because I no longer had to pretend everything was okay when it obviously wasn't. I replied that I respected her decision and wished her the best, and she didn't even answer me. The wedding was on December 18, 2021, a Saturday. I stayed home with Chandler. We made a special dinner, watched movies. Honestly, we had a good time considering the circumstances. I knew that at that moment my sister was getting married without me being there, and it was weird and sad, but I also felt at peace with my decision because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. I wasn't taking anything away from Brittany. I was just protecting my own space and my right to live peacefully in my own house. Chandler supported me the whole time, told me my family was being unreasonable and that I had done right to set boundaries, and that helped me a lot not to feel like the villain everyone was painting me to be. Like 3 days after the wedding, on December 21st, I received a long message from Brittany that left me totally surprised. It was like nighttime. I was watching TV, and suddenly I saw she had written me. The message said something like, "Patrick, I just found out something, and I need to apologize. Eric and I were talking with Mom and Dad about why you weren't at the wedding, and I told them it was because you didn't want to lend us the house for the honeymoon. And Mom said something I didn't understand, and when I asked more, it turned out they never told me that you bought the house. They told me my whole life that you lived there without paying rent, that they were basically letting you use the family house, not that it was yours. I honestly didn't know, Patrick, and now I feel horrible because you're right. It's your house, and it was super out of line for me to demand to use it." I read that message like 5 times because I couldn't believe it. Turns out my parents, for 4 years, had been lying to Brittany about the house situation. They had made her believe I lived there as a favor, as if they were still the owners and were doing me a favor by letting me stay there. That's why she acted so entitled, because she genuinely thought the house was still my parents and therefore the family's. I don't justify how she treated me, because it was still horrible. but at least I started to understand where all her attitude was coming from. I responded, thanking her for apologizing. I explained that yes, I had bought the house in 2017 with all my savings specifically to pay for her college, and that I had spent thousands more dollars and months of work fixing it up so I could live there. I told her I had no problem with her, that I understood she had been misinformed, but that I hoped she would now respect that it was my property and my home. She responded yes, that she understood, and that she hoped we could fix our relationship eventually. I told her I hoped so too, but that I needed time. Since then, like 3 years have passed, we're in 2024 now, and the relationship with my family is still complicated. Brittany and I talk occasionally. Nothing deep, but at least it's cordial. And she never asked to use the house again. My parents are. Another story, they're still mad at me. I think because I basically exposed them as liars in front of Brittany, and our relationship is pretty damaged. I see them at Christmas and birthdays because Chandler convinces me to go, but it's not the same as before, and probably never will be. My Aunt Ruth is still my favorite person in the whole family. She's the only one who consistently supported me and told me I did right. Chandler and I still live in the lake house. Now, we've been here together for 5 years and we're happier than ever. We made more improvements. We have 2 dogs. Our life is exactly what I imagined when I bought this place. Sometimes, it makes me sad that things with my family turned out this way. Like I wish they could have just respected my boundaries without all the drama. But in the end, I think it was necessary. I learned that setting boundaries with family is one of the hardest things you can do, but also one of the most important, especially when they feel entitled to your time, your space, or your things just because they're family. Last week, my parents asked me if they could bring some friends to see the lake house, and I told them no, that if they wanted, we could meet at a restaurant in the area, but my house wasn't available for visits. My mom got upset but didn't make the drama like before. She just said okay and changed the subject. I think they're finally accepting that they're not going to be able to manipulate me into giving them access to my property, and honestly, it's a relief. Chandler told me afterwards that he was proud of me for maintaining the boundary, and that's what matters, I guess. At the end of the day, I live in my house, with my partner, living the life I want to live. And if my family can't respect that, it's their problem, not mine.